So hello and welcome. I'm Frederick Dunn and this is The Way to Be. It's December of 2025 and the weather outside is miserable. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to put together a Flow Hive, a Flow Hive 2. I'm also trying out these new plastic squaring systems that you can use to clamp your boxes and things that you're trying to square up. Never used them before, got them from Home Depot, thought I would try them out, and this would be a great way to do it. A lot of ways to use them, but when you put together a beehive, you want things to be square. You also want the frames inside your beehive to be square. And one of the things I'm going to cover in this video is one of the number one reasons that people have problems getting their Flow Hives to work, specifically the Flow Super. This comes from Millington, Tennessee, and this box weighs 38 pounds. That's a lot of weight for a kit that you're going to put together. And of course, as I mentioned, it's Flow Hive. Here's the box. Be creative, be inspired, be thoughtful, be together, be friendly, be inventive. That's all from the Flow Hive. And of course, it has an instruction folder that comes with it. But I've put so many of these together, I'm just going to wing it, and I'm going to walk you through it. And this is cedar, of course, and there are two sizes, by the way. They measure up with the 8-frame Langstroth or the 10-frame Langstroth, and this is the 8-frame Langstroth size version, which will hold 6 flow frames in the top. All cedar, up to you whether or not you put a finish on it. They last a long time either way. So I'm also using these DeWalt 6-inch clamps, and I squared it right up. I'm also not using glue on the hive itself. I'm just going to clamp it, put the stainless steel screws in it that are self-tapping. As I mentioned before, I've done it all before. We're just going to put this together in case someone may have troubles. We already start with the top, and there's a roof block there that a lot of people ignore. They don't even know what this thing is for. Well, it's a gauge. It's a gauge to make sure that you line up the roof. And I think the people at Flow have figured out that some beekeepers don't put this together very well, so they even put the two pieces together on both sides, and then you just mount them as a single piece. There are also grooves on the gables here that you need to match it up with. If you offset that, you'll have a big gap there. So you could glue all of this. I'm not going to. Now, after it's all done, you could come in and run glue along the interior, especially if it's waterproof glue like some of the new Gorilla Glue is, and then that will soak into the seams and prevent moisture from penetrating. This is of course the gable strip that goes across the top after the side panels are in, and there's the self-tapping screws that go right into that. The key to putting in those screws is to make sure that they go in just enough to make them flush with the surface, and don't try to overdo it. Then you won't be splitting the wood. And the wood, see, it has these black edges. That's because it's laser cut. You also have these brass screws for the roof, and that allows you to screw it onto the box below, and that keeps the roof from flowing off. And the other thing is, every bag of screws is marked for what it's used for. So these are brood box screws. And look, just in case you haven't figured that out, the interior of every panel is labeled. So this tells us this is the brood box. The holes are pre-drilled, so they make it really easy for you. The lumber is straight and true. This is top quality lumber, but it should be. These things are not inexpensive. So of course we put the angles in here, and look at that. I can use a little 4-inch and the 8-inch squares, and we just clamp them up, and they are true. So then you put the screws in, and look what you have, the brood box. So that's all together, and of the whole kit, the brood box is probably the easiest and most straightforward piece of the kit to put together. Now they include tools, so you can put it together by hand, but I use a DeWalt cordless drill, slant screwdriver. And now we're going to look at the super. Now this throws some people for a loop, so I'm going to cover some of the areas that people tend to mess up. There are removable panels, and there are translucent panels that go inside there. So when we're looking at the markings, just remember that's the interior. I have seen some people put these together, and I've seen the numbers and markings on the outside of the hive. They're supposed to be on the inside. So these transparent panels go on. You'll see the pre-drilled holes in the panel, and you're going to put these little short screws in there. There's an aluminum strap that goes across the bottom, and it's countersunk to show you which side is the top. There are these translucent pieces that are used as guides or shims, and there are also, of course, the viewing windows. And there is a protective cover on both sides of those, so you need to peel them off of both sides. And it's really pretty straightforward, but we're just going to do it anyway. So once again, all the parts are here now. We peeled off the protective coatings. There's a countersunk side here on this aluminum strap. Make sure that that's the side that stays facing out, because you're going to put a screw in that and it's going to be flush mounted. This is the tool that comes with it. I know you can build the whole thing with this. I just don't use it that way. Now the holes in the lucite are already pre-drilled. I go corner to corner first to line it up, just like this. And to keep it kind of loose until I get all the screws started, and then I cinch them up just enough to make this panel snug against the wood. Don't try to overdo it or you can crack it. And then of course these are the shims again, because this is the Flow Super, and the Flow frames are going to go up against this. So you want to make sure that it doesn't overlap into your box joints there, and it doesn't. And you'll see at the very end how that helps us make sure that the flow frames are lined up and that the bees can't get through. So this thing is really thought out well. This is a very good design. You don't have to buy the whole hive, by the way. You can just buy the Flow Super. Now because I have the shims there, I can't put these squaring devices on the interior, so I put them on the outside. Pretty darn versatile. Easy going, easy to clamp. And now we have that aluminum strap, and that's exactly how it should appear. It should go right to the edge of the box. And remember, the countersunk section goes out, and when you put the screw in, it should look just like that, nice and flush. Because that's a removable panel. There will be no screws in it that hold it to the box. You're going to have to pull that out later to look at the hive. And we have machine screws here too for these fancy brass handles that are used as the pulls for the side panels. You also have one for the back panel, and you'll screw that in again until it's snug enough. So on the other side here, you'll see that it's flush with the surface. We don't want that rubbing up against or scratching the lucite panel. So here again is the other one that goes on the back, removable panel that will show us the flow frame ends. And then that's it. It's all together, but we have to put the retaining clip on here. I think that's what they call it. Anyway, it has a long screw that's different from the other screws, and there are two springs that go with it. And you're going to put the two springs together on the screw on the outside there, and then we're going to screw it in until those two springs just start to squeeze shut. And that keeps just enough pressure on it so that we can still move it. And we can close off that top removable strip, and of course the viewing panel down below. So that's it. Pretty simple, pretty easy going, and no glue, so I didn't have to wait for anything to dry. We can just keep going, and it is nice and square. Now another thing that gives people a little bit of a challenge too is the base. So it's the Flow Hive 2, so it has a really nice base with an enclosed removable tray in the bottom. But there again, it's all marked again, base, and number 4 goes to number 4. Number 2 goes to number 2. This is really set up. They're really trying hard to make sure that people understand which pieces go together. And then there's a top strut there, and then a spirit level. And also we have these little clamps here that will close up the sides of the viewing panels. And they look brass. I think they have to be steel underneath because they're really tough and they don't feel soft like pure brass would be, but they're definitely good looking, and there you have it. And again, the reason these things are dark, the edges of the wood, it's laser cut. So we're clamping up the base, going to get the screws in there. There are not a lot of screws on that. And we're going to square that up, and then we're going to, of course, put the landing board on the front of it. There are 2 pre-drilled screw holes for that. Very simple. You just line up the board, run the screws through, and it's on there. And again, if you wanted to, you could glue it and clamp it and things like that. But you definitely want to put the corner screws in first, then the landing board goes on over those screws. And the holes are pre-drilled. So this is the back side of it. You can see the stabilizer strip on the top and the removable vent or winter setting cover for your tray. Now this is the aluminum screen that goes in the bottom. It comes with this clear plastic or translucent plastic over the top that you have to peel off. And then there are 2 runners that go in. Now there are 4 total, 2 on each side, and they're identical. So the holes that are in them are spaced the same, but you'll see that one of them goes at an angle, angling down from the back, and the other one follows the top, and the top one is the one that supports the screen on top, and the other one supports the tray down below. Now that angle is because when you tip it so that you can harvest the honey, that would then be level. So it's kind of different to look at. You might think that it's wrong, but follow the holes that are already drilled. Now this thing comes with a leg stand that's adjustable, so these legs are nice and long. You have a lot of adjustment range there. Galvanized, and not galvanized, I'm sorry, I think this is chrome plated. And you can see the weldments there, and it's got this little flange on it, which makes it again a little foolproof, so that when you run it right up against the wood there, you kind of can't mess it up. And because we squared things up good, see how the screw holes are there, we just put the short screws that they supply right into the base. Now you could leave it off altogether. If you've got another stand for this and you don't want to use these adjustable legs, you don't have to. But since they come with it, let's put them together. Now I've put these together without putting them on the metal parts first. Like you can hold these in your hand, put the screws through, get them together, and then put them on the chromium legs there. And there are 2 screw holes in the back of those that will bind these together. So again, no gluing, it's all screws. And then you can see that there's a nut that's been welded in there. And then what I do is I put the legs in those nuts and I turn them all the way in. So in other words, make it as short as possible, and then I'll adjust it out as I need to later to level things up. And I'm assuming, of course, that you're putting this on a hive stand. If you weren't, we want to make sure, at least where I live in the state of Pennsylvania, we want to make sure that the landing board is high enough that skunks will not harass your bees. And this is the tray that gets inserted, and we've already put the tray runner in. We showed you that before. It goes through the back and just follows that metal guide that you screwed with the 2 screws on the side walls. And then you look it over carefully. See how nicely squared up this is? There are no crooked angles. And we make sure that it doesn't look like bees, wasps, or ants or anything else could be walking up through there. And we close it up through the back, and that's in the vented position. So summertime, for example, has a spirit level built in. And then when you flip it over, this is the winter or non-vented position. So you just decide what you're going to do. This is going to go out in a bee yard in the spring. And again, it's December of 2025. And it's just a great time to do things indoors. So the spirit levels, this is pretty important. When you put together your brood box, you want to make sure that the hive is absolutely level, especially if you're going to use foundationless frames in there. And we're going to take a close-up of those. I'm going to show you the position that it should be in. Now here it is with the aluminum screen inside. This is handy. It's part of integrated pest management. Varroa mites and other things fall right through, and the bees groom them off, and you collect them in the trays below. It's passive pest management. And also, when you look at the entrance here, see how narrow that is? I've never had to put a mouse guard on the front of a Flow Hive bottom board. And that's because at only 3/8 of an inch, mice just can't get into it. Now these frames are supplied. I'm going to glue them together. These are 3 choices. I use all of these. There's Gorilla Wood Glue Tight Bond Ultimate 3, which is what I always used to use, but now I'm on to Gorilla Wood Glue Ultimate. Long working time, 15 minutes, and it's waterproof and stronger. Not only that, it can go through a couple of freeze cycles, which my Tight Bond did not hold up to that very well, but use any really good quality wood glue, and of course that is certified for indirect food contact, if that matters to you. So these are standard Langstroth deep frames. They come with grooves in them, and again, they're made really well, and they come with starter strips and also these pins that you can nail into them. Now I have to be honest, I've never put these pins in, and that's because if you glue them up really well, this shows how you would put the pins in if you wanted to, but if you glue them up really well, I've never had them pull apart. So that's what I'm sticking with. I've been doing honeybees since 2006, and I've been doing flow hives for over 9 years. So I just take one of these egg cartons here and I squirt the glue in it, and I use an acid brush. And so the acid brush is just something you can throw away when you're done, but I use that to spread the wood glue on the surfaces that I want to bond together. So here we go. It's really key that you make sure that all those surfaces that make contact have some glue on them. And I'm going to put this together, and then on the outside, when you get these little globs there, because that's going to sit on the rabbet joint, we want to smooth that out so there aren't any big globs or bumps that get in the way. And it helps seal some of the wood joint there. And the glue is stronger than the wood that it's binding, so it really works well. Now see the face there on that top bar? We want to run the glue up on the interior surface of the sidebar so that it also coats that top bar face. We get more contact area with the glue and we get a stronger bond. Also, make sure to tap the wood down so that they go all the way even with the top of the top bar. Now there's a groove running down the middle. You can put foundation inserts in there. You can use the starter strips that come with it. And the starter strips could be glued in, but I don't personally do that because when it comes to starter strips, if you want to put something else in the frame, or you want to be foundationless, like if you're going to do comb honey or something, which you wouldn't normally in a brood box, but gluing it in limits your options. The other thing is, look at the square here on the frame. See that gap? You want to rock these back and forth a little bit until they're absolutely square, and then you can just park them somewhere and they dry overnight and they stay that way. But if you don't square them up, you're kind of asking for trouble later, because the bees, we need to use bee space inside the hive, and square frames are key. So there's the starter strip in there. You would rub that with beeswax and the bees would start. So those that I've put in without gluing them, the bees propolize them and put beeswax on it. They also, of course, make their comb right onto the sidebars. So these are 8 frames matching up with the Langstroth hive box. And you want to leave space at either end so that when you go to do your inspections, look what you do. You push the frame off to the side, and note where I put the hive tool, right between the shoulders, and push there. That way we're never pulling the frames apart. Then you would spread them apart, lift it up, and you don't roll your queen. So we pull the second frame usually, and just make sure that they're all pushed together when you set them out to start your colony of bees. And if you have some foundation, that does speed things up a little bit. So moving on to the Flow Super, we're going to look at these frames, and as I mentioned early on, I'm going to talk about one of the most common mistakes I see people make when they put these Flow Supers together. Now this is the box that they come in. This is 6 Flow Supers, Flow frames, and it comes with extra parts in this little thin box here. Keep those in a Ziploc baggie somewhere, and you will get one hive tool that's actually a key that's designed to activate these flow frames, which are very unique. And of course, this is the very core of the entire convenience of a flow hive. Each one comes with its own tube. I recommend you go ahead and put those in a Ziploc baggie so you have them. There's a cap that covers the bottom channel, and then there's a cap that covers the top, and that's where your key goes in to activate it. Now keep in mind, when this comes brand new, a lot of beekeepers get it and think it comes from the factory and it must be good to go. It is not. So just because the key's in the top, you might think that it's in the closed position, it's ready for bees. Well, here it is right out of the box, and what it is it's actually in the flow position, which means those cells are split and the honey could just run through it. But when the bees encounter a flow frame like this, they will not build beeswax, they won't fill it, they won't work it. And you may have been told that if you can put the key cap in the end, that it means that it is in the closed position because there is a spacer there. But that is not the case, because that only deals with the first leaf that it encounters. So now that we've seen what it looks like when it's open, I am going to show you what it should look like when it's ready for your bees to start working it. So you definitely want to look everything over and make sure you have all your caps. And remember, they included 2 spares and 2 spares for the top. See that little tab right there? That only goes in when it's in the closed cell, or the position for your bees to work the cells. But as I mentioned, that does not mean that throughout the full run that they're properly aligned, and look, they're not. So I want you to always take the cap out of every one of your brand new Flow frames, and then I want you to reset every single Flow frame for the first time. And it has a kind of like a screwdriver tip at one end and it's blunt at the other end. So we slip it in through the top opening, through the full length of the frame, and then we give it a twist, and that pushes all of the leaves down and closes the cells into the hexagon shape that your bees will recognize and use. And when the bees get in there, they're going to seal it up with beeswax primarily, and sometimes some propolis as well, and they'll start working them. Now they may spend the entire first season doing nothing but working up the Flow frames and getting them prepared so that you can then see them put honey in. Now you can see that the cells are complete. Now this is another thing that people have a problem with. You need to look at these cells dead on. If you look at them at an angle, it can look like, oh, they're misaligned, something's wrong. Look at that. It doesn't look like it's set right, but it is. When you angle this frame so that you can see directly down the cell, you'll see that they are in their hexagonal shape, and this is an example of it being closed up and ready for the bees to begin working on it. They're not supposed to be snug and close tight together. The bees are going to fill all the gaps. So after we did that, we put all the caps back. So we're ready to go. So now I'm just showing you how things are aligned. When you open up the back and you pull that panel, this entire area is not accessible to the bees. Look at the lucite shims on each side, and the frames are all right next to each other exactly as they should be. Now there is an adjustment you can make, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, but look through this channel and you can see that they are all properly aligned. And of course you have to do that inspection where you look at the sides to make sure that they look like hexagons when you look straight into the cell. Also see this alignment right here? Make sure that it butts up against that lucite shim. It should not be behind it. They should not be skewered. They should all be side by side exactly. We do not want bees to be able to come through here. Now there will be some play. There's little gaps here, and the bees propolize that up. They also use beeswax. They seal it all up, and you will be able to see through these windows the end of each frame, and you'll be able to see as the bees start to work the cells when they build it up with beeswax, and you'll be able to see it when they start filling these cells with honey. And so there is an adjustment screw on the end of each of those. So if you found that there's a lot of play or they're not pushing against that back panel, that gets removed the way they should, you can back out the screws there. And if you do it to one, do the exact same amount of screw adjustment on each frame. We want to make sure that they stay side by side and that these little flanges that are next to one another, this is all food grade plastic, that they all line up perfectly with each other so you don't have problems later. And it does. And it's a Phillips head screw, of course, that you would use to back out there and line things up. So now this thing is ready to go. So we're going to put it all together just so we can kind of cap things off. There's the back side of it. And of course, don't forget the spirit level is there. Side to side leveling is critical. If you're going foundationless, you want to make sure that we don't want the bees to make wonky comb. So it's a big advantage to have these legs with all this adjustment range on them, and you can make sure it's level side to side. Now front to back, not so critical. In fact, you could leave it front to back in the position that you would harvest the honey from. I just think that looks kind of funny, so I level it off. And then if we get to the time where they're filling up the Flow Super and we're going to extract honey from it, then you can adjust the legs and tilt it back that 2 to 3 degrees of tilt. And you don't even have to calculate that because the spirit level here on the side, see how it's off to the right? That's because the box itself is level right now. If this bubble were centered between those two black lines, then that means it's in the harvest position. It would be tilted back roughly 3 degrees. And that's what it looks like in the tilted position. So again, I don't like to leave it in that position. I level it up, and then when I'm ready to harvest the honey, that's when I would tip it back. And the legs remain adjustable. I highly recommend you spray these legs, the threads and stuff, with WD-40. The ones that I've had out in the bee yard for a long time do have some oxidation on them, and we can offset that by making sure you use some kind of lubricant. And so if you'd rather use something inert, if you want to use some kind of glycerin or something to keep those lubricated, that's fine too. And there it is. And we look at the panel, we make sure that things can't get through. We don't want the bees going through there. Workers cannot pass through that panel. So the things that grew them off, detritus, any excess moisture that builds up in this hive will go right through that and into the tray. And the bees can still control venting and everything else because this hive is closed up where the tray is. Remember, you have a vent option on the back, but you close it up mostly. That's what I do. And so here we are. This is the way you will start it out. Just the base, just the brood box. Get your bees started in this box, and when they get that 70 or 80% full and they're on their way and they're really kind of building up honey, that's when you can add a super. So this is what's called the inner cover. And if you notice the one here from Flow Hive, it has the round opening. That matches up with a rapid round if you wanted to use that. And you can just do anything you need to do for feeding that. And you're going to find out that the bees are going to propolize that up too, so you're going to need your hive tool to open that later on once it's in service. But this is the setup you start with. Single brood box, bottom board, feeding if you need to, because remember, it's the brood, so we can feed inside that box. And so we're also going to show what goes on next later in the year. If you're lucky enough to get your bees to build up and you've got a colony that's sized right, don't forget to tighten these brass screws to keep the lid on. That way you don't have to strap it down. It's the weight of the hive, again, the bees inside and the honey and resources that they store that give it its static weight. So now it's in the closed position on the back. And the next thing we would do, if you're going to expand it, we put the included queen excluder. Now when you put the queen excluder on, drones can't get through it, queens can't get through it. The only bees that pass through these openings would be the workers themselves. Because when it comes to the honey super up above, you don't want anything in it other than worker honeybees, and of course you want them to put honey up there. And so that works really well. And then we put the Flow super on top of that with the side viewing windows, and you'll have all your Flow frames in there. And if you do this too early, the bees may not build or expand at all. For some reason, bees, when they have too much space and they have not yet used the space available to them, they tend to slow down and back off. So keeping them compact down to one brood box first until they really get going before expanding, you'll find out you'll get well ahead. And so then the inner cover has been moved on top of that Flow super, and then we put the Flow super roof on top of that, and we use those brass twists on top to mount that roof to the side walls of the top box. And there again, the entrance. Now I have sometimes put rolled screen on the edges of that entrance to help reduce it so they can defend themselves from robbing. They can keep ventilating that way, but mice in this opening are not a problem. So there you have it. That's the Flow Hive 2, exactly the way it comes from Flow. And I invite you to go and look at my website, which is thewaytobee.org. Click on the page marked the Flow Hive Experience, and you'll see all the other videos that show you how to winterize it, how to insulate it, and even ways to use it without the queen excluder here in the northeastern United States in cold weather. So I want to thank you for watching. If you found this interesting, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more. I wish you all the best in beekeeping.